Chapter 1. Ethan Peterson once promised he would love Aurora Hawthorne for a lifetime, but after her father was in a car accident, he cheated on her. Time and again, he flirted with other women right in front of her, yet he used her father's medical bills as leverage to keep her from leaving. Later, when Aurora's heart had completely died, she chose to marry a disabled man rather than stay by Ethan's side. But only after truly losing her did Ethan regret ever hurting her. Mr. Sterling, I've made my decision. As long as you can fulfill your promise to cover my father's medical expenses, I will marry your son. The middle-aged man on the other end of the line couldn't hide the surprise in his voice. You truly don't mind his disability? You're willing to marry him and have children? Aurora simply said, yes. To be honest, as long as she could save her father, it didn't matter who she married. The man she had once loved so deeply was already in love with someone else. Good, excellent, fearing he might scare her off, Arthur Sterling did his best to suppress his excitement. Give me 2 weeks. As soon as I finish up my business here, I'll fly back and find the best doctors for your father. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, Aurora replied politely. After hanging up, she calmly picked up a pair of black stockings from the sofa. They weren't hers. From the tears in the fabric, Aurora could guess just how rough their owner had been. The faint morning light fell on her face, which hadn't seen a wink of sleep. She let out a self-deprecating laugh. Last night, her father's condition had turned critical. She had waited alone outside the operating room, calling Ethan over and over, only to be met with the cold, disconnected tone of his phone being hung up. She had assumed he was busy with work and couldn't answer. But returning home today to see the stockings on the sofa, the red-bottomed heels carelessly tossed on the floor, and the closed master bedroom door, Aurora understood everything. He wasn't busy with work. He was just too lost in another woman's arms to break free. Aurora walked to the master bedroom, black stockings in hand, and knocked gently on the door. Remember to put away your things after you're done playing. Don't leave them out here, where I have to look at them. With that, she dropped the stockings and went into the study next door. Even when she heard panicked noises from the bedroom, Aurora didn't care. In 2 weeks, she would be gone anyway. The study was filled with photos of her and Ethan, each one placed on the wall by their own hands. Tears blurred her vision. Aurora sniffled and began tearing the memories from the walls, one by one. They had been in love for 6 years. When they graduated, she had defied her father's wishes for her to take over his traditional medicine practice, choosing instead to support Ethan as he built his startup. The moment his business took off, he proposed to her. They were once the perfect couple in the eyes of their friends and family. But on the eve of their wedding, her father had an unexpected car accident. Their passionate love story began to crumble as Dr. Hawthorne lay in the hospital, gravely injured. Ethan felt that her father's medical bills were too high and began to see her family as a burden holding him back. He grew impatient with Aurora, and 6 months ago, he hired a beautiful young secretary to be by his side. Under the guise of work, he and his secretary would flirt openly in front of Aurora. It wasn't that Aurora couldn't see what was happening. She had considered breaking up with him, but her father's medical expenses were staggering. She couldn't imagine how long he would last without Ethan's financial support. She had no other choice but to lower her head and endure the humiliation. But now, things were different. Mr. Sterling had promised to cover her father's medical bills. In another 2 weeks, Aurora would no longer have to live at the mercy of Ethan Peterson. Chapter 2. The study door was thrown open, and Ethan stormed in, his pajamas slightly disheveled. He snatched a photo from Aurora's hand just as she tore it from the wall, his voice laced with panic. Aurora, don't tear them down. You've misunderstood. Jasmine was with me at a client dinner last night and had too much to drink. I was worried about her going home alone, so I brought her back. Nothing happened between us. Fearing she wouldn't believe him, he pulled over Jasmine, who had just woken up. Ma'am, please don't misunderstand. Jasmine swayed as she approached Aurora, her voice cloyingly sweet. Mr. Peterson and I just slept in the same bed last night, that's all. We didn't do anything. Aurora sized her up. With her deep V, form-fitting mini dress and overpowering perfume, who would believe that nothing had happened? She scoffed. Well, Miss Lowell, you must be quite a failure then. Dressed like that, and you still couldn't get your Mr. Peterson interested. Is there something wrong with you, or is there something wrong with him? As she finished, Aurora glanced pointedly at Ethan. His face instantly darkened. Jasmine and I have both explained it to you. Who are these snide remarks for? Jasmine gently tugged on his sleeve. It's all right, Mr. Peterson. Don't be so harsh with her. It's understandable, really. After all, she's never been in the professional world. How would she know what a business dinner entails? It's only natural for her to misunderstand. A wave of derision washed over Aurora. When I was attending those dinners with Ethan, you were still a nobody. She lowered her head and said nothing. Jasmine, assuming Aurora was ashamed, turned back to Ethan. But ma'am, you need to be more open-minded. You can't keep clinging to Mr. Peterson over every little thing. He has a company to run and your father's medical bills to pay. He's under a lot of pressure. You should apologize to Mr. Peterson and we can all move on. She spoke with such casual confidence, one might have thought she was Ethan's actual girlfriend. Aurora glanced at Ethan and saw not a hint of defense in his eyes. She sighed heavily. I'm sorry. I misunderstood you both. Ethan had never been one for long-winded female apologies. He waved his hand impatiently. That's enough. Go make some soup for me and Jasmine to clear our heads. All right, Aurora said, her voice flat. Watching her silently walk toward the kitchen, Ethan frowned. He was surprised. He recalled that in similar situations before, Aurora would always throw a crying fit, only backing down when he threatened her with her father's medical bills. But today, before he'd said a word, she had obediently gone to the kitchen. Something, Ethan thought, was not right with her. But before he could dwell on it, Jasmine's slender arms wrapped around his waist. Don't, Ethan gently pushed her away. She's still here. Fine, Jasmine pouted. Will you get a hotel room with me tonight then? Yes, whatever you want, he said, affectionately tapping her nose. In the kitchen, Aurora heard their flirtatious exchange. She hadn't realized their relationship had become so intimate. She wiped away a tear and comforted herself. It's okay, I won't have to see them soon anyway. Chapter 3. After placing the soup on the table, Aurora intended to go to her room to catch up on sleep. Ethan stopped her, grabbing her hand. You called me so many times last night. Did something happen? Aurora froze, and her eyes instantly reddened. Last night, my father was in critical condition. Ethan fell silent for a few seconds. He took out his phone and transferred $500,000 to Aurora's bank account. This should be enough to cover your dad's expenses for a month. I'll go with you to see him tonight. Perhaps feeling guilty for missing her calls, it was the first time in 6 months that Ethan had offered to visit her father. Aurora hesitated, trying to think of how to refuse, but Jasmine spoke first. Mr. Peterson, don't you have a meeting tonight? She asked, batting her eyelashes to remind him of their date. Aurora quickly seized the opportunity. You go handle your business. I can go by myself. He's not awake anyway, so there's no point in you visiting. The thought of Jasmine's fiery figure was too tempting for Ethan to resist. Unwilling to give up his evening plans, he feigned concern. All right, then you be careful. If you need more money, just let me know. Aurora nodded. I'm going to get some rest now. She instinctively started walking toward the master bedroom, but the thought of Ethan and Jasmine spending the night in there made her feel sick. She stood before the door for a moment, then turned and went to the guest room instead. If the bed was dirty, there was no point in forcing herself to sleep in it. Aurora had a long dream about the life she had shared with Ethan. She dreamt of the blush and excitement when they first got together, of Ethan's soft coaxing when they argued, and of the surprise he had planned for her birthday, saving up for over half a year. She woke up with tears streaming down her face. Aurora couldn't understand how their deep, youthful love had come to this. Was it all because of her father's illness? Her phone, lying on the bedside table, buzzed with several new messages. She opened it to see a series of photos from Jasmine. In the pictures, a man and a woman were kissing passionately. It only took one glance for her to recognize the man's well-built frame as Ethan's. It was a blatant provocation. Aurora ignored it, turning off her phone and beginning to pack her things. She had accumulated so many odds and ends over the years. With only 2 weeks left, she didn't want to leave a single trace of herself behind. After being away for 3 straight days, Ethan suddenly sent her a text that evening, asking her to accompany him to a business dinner. She didn't want to go, but Ethan said that the client, a Mr. Wagner, had specifically requested her presence. Remembering the help Mr. Wagner had given them during the startup phase, Aurora decided she should show him that respect. When she arrived at the designated restaurant, Jasmine was already waiting at the entrance. She handed Aurora a fishtail dress. "Miss Hawthorne, you should change into this before you go in. Don't embarrass Mr. Peterson." Aurora gave her a cool glance. "In what capacity are you ordering me around? You're so ungrateful." Jasmine stomped her foot. "I was just trying to keep you from being laughed at for looking so shabby. That's my business, not yours." Aurora ignored her and walked straight to the private room. The moment she entered, Ethan, who was seated near the door, shot her a look of displeasure. "Why did you come dressed like that?" At the head of the round table, Mr. Wagner's expression shifted from anticipation to disdain. "Mr. Peterson, your girlfriend has certainly changed a lot." Chapter 4, Ethan immediately forced a smile. "My apologies for the sight, Mr. Wagner. Aurora, hurry up and pour Mr. Wagner a drink." As Aurora poured the wine, Jasmine slipped into the room and whispered something in Ethan's ear. Ethan's face turned ashen. If it weren't for the important guest present, he probably would have exploded on the spot. "Aurora," Mr. Wagner drawled, "it's been so long. How did you end up like this? Has your Mr. Peterson been too busy to properly nourish you?" Aurora was dressed plainly, and the long-term stress had etched a weariness on her face that didn't belong to someone her age. Even makeup couldn't hide it. Next to the dolled-up Jasmine, she looked utterly pathetic. "Mr. Wagner, please," she said, placing the glass in front of him, having no intention of engaging him further. "Don't go. Sit here next to me." He pressed his greasy hand onto her shoulder. Across the table, Ethan saw it but remained impassive. Left with no choice, Aurora gritted her teeth and sat down. After a few rounds of drinks, Mr. Wagner's hands began to wander. Aurora instinctively flinched away. "Excuse me, I need to use the restroom." She had barely stepped out of the room when Ethan followed her. "Where are you going?" He grabbed her arm. "The company has a huge deal on the line with Mr. Wagner. Be a good girl and cooperate with me to close it." Aurora stared at him in disbelief. "So you brought me here to trade me for a business deal?" "Don't make it sound so ugly," Ethan said in a low voice. "I just need you to keep Mr. Wagner happy with a few drinks. It's not like I'm asking you to sleep with him." She gave a bitter laugh. "When you were first starting out, you wouldn't even let me toast a client. Now you just stand by and watch while I'm forced to drink and get groped." "Ethan, do you still have any feelings for me at all?" He pressed his lips together as if he'd just heard the world's biggest joke. "If I didn't have feelings for you, I would have let your father die a year ago. Why would I have given you so much money for his medical bills?" His tone was laced with sarcasm. "Do you think my money grows on trees? Let me tell you, if you don't keep Mr. Wagner happy, I'll take back the $500,000 I gave you a few days ago." The heartless words poured from his mouth, and Aurora's body trembled slightly. "Fine, I'll entertain him." Her clenched fists relaxed. Her proud spine was once again forced to bend. She turned to go back to the private room, but when she opened the door, she saw a drunk Mr. Wagner with his arm around Jasmine's shoulders. He let out a belch. "You're Mr. Peterson's secretary, right? A lot prettier than his girlfriend. What are you doing?" Ethan, who had followed Aurora in, saw the scene and his veins bulged. He lunged forward and pulled Jasmine away. Seeing the fear in Jasmine's wide, red eyes, Ethan furiously smashed the wine glass in front of Mr. Wagner. "Who let you touch her? You've got to be kidding me." Mr. Wagner was now mostly sober. He'd never been yelled at like this in his life, especially not by some kid in his 20s. "You don't get mad when I touch your girlfriend, but you lose it when I touch your secretary." His face was a mask of fury. "You can forget about that deal, Chapter 5, fine by me, I didn't want it anyway." Ethan spat in his direction, then grabbed Jasmine's hand and stormed out, remembering to call Aurora along with them. Outside the restaurant, while waiting for the driver, Ethan comforted the trembling Jasmine in his arms while simultaneously blaming Aurora. If you hadn't been so dramatic and left, he never would have laid a hand on Jasmine. Aurora stood rigidly beside them as the evening wind whipped through her hair. She felt that the city's autumn had never been as cold as it was today. Jasmine, like a startled rabbit, buried her face in Ethan's chest as tears streamed down her cheeks. "Mr. Peterson, I'm fine. Please don't be so harsh with ma'am." Aurora said nothing, simply staring at them in silence. After a while, Ethan finally calmed down. "Jasmine is an employee at my company. She just graduated and is inexperienced. As her boss, it's my duty to protect her." Otherwise, how could I face her family? Yes, I understand. Aurora allowed the pain in her heart to fester. There are only 10 days left anyway. Let him do whatever he wants. When the car arrived, she deliberately took the front passenger seat, leaving the back for them. Liu, to the Victoria Hotel first, Ethan instructed the driver before remembering to explain to Aurora. I have to drop Jasmine off at the hotel before I can take you home. Okay. She leaned back against the seat and closed her eyes. The drinks she had downed earlier were starting to take effect. Combined with her menstrual cramps, Aurora was completely exhausted. She didn't know how long she had slept, but she slowly opened her eyes when the driver, Liu, gently woke her. Miss Hawthorne, Mr. Peterson said he had something to attend to and has already left. Okay. Aurora grabbed her bag with one hand and opened the car door with the other, her black trench coat rustling against the seat. She walked into her home with heavy steps. There wasn't a single text from Ethan on her phone. It wasn't hard to guess that he had gone to be with Jasmine. For some reason, even though she was about to leave, seeing him so devoted to another woman still made Aurora's heart ache. After a hot shower, Aurora received another round of photos from Jasmine. But unlike the last time, which brought only pain, this time, what she saw in the photos ignited a blazing fury in her eyes. To appease Jasmine, Ethan had given her the family's jade pendant. It was a Hawthorne family heirloom, a symbol of peace and blessing, representing the vow to grow old together. Dr. Hawthorne would never have given the centuries-old pendant to Ethan if their wedding hadn't been just around the corner. But now, Ethan was using this treasured family heirloom to win over another woman. If my father never recovers, this will be the only thing I have left of him. Aurora took a deep breath and immediately called a cab to the Victoria Hotel. Unsure which room was Jasmine's, Aurora began knocking on doors one by one, asking for her. After being cursed at by the 14th person for being a lunatic, she finally found the room where Jasmine and Ethan were staying. What are you doing here? Ethan frowned the moment he opened the door and saw her. The jade pendant. Give it back to me, Aurora pushed past him and stumbled toward Jasmine. It was the first time in 2 years she had ever been this frantic. That is my family's heirloom. It cannot fall into the hands of an outsider. Give it back now, she stared at Jasmine, her eyes filled with hatred. Mr. Peterson, I'm scared. Jasmine clutched the blanket, casting a helpless look toward Ethan. Chapter 6, It's just a piece of jade. What's all the fuss about? Ethan stepped forward and grabbed Aurora's wrist, his voice thick with impatience. My father is lying in a hospital bed, unconscious, and you're giving away the gift he gave you to someone else. Aurora's voice cracked with tears. Doesn't your conscience hurt at all? A warm rush flowed from her lower abdomen, and the menstrual pain intensified. Seeing her anguished expression, Ethan faltered for a second, but his arrogant demeanor quickly returned. I've spent so much money on his treatment. Can't I use one of his things? Aurora roared. Don't forget I had a stake in that company too. You were the one who said you'd cover my father's medical bills if I transferred all my shares to you. How has it suddenly become that you're the only one paying for his treatment? You're making a scene, Ethan retorted, unable to come up with a better defense. He shoved her onto the cold floor. Give me back the pendant. She endured the pain and scrambled to her feet, lunging at Jasmine, trying to find the pendant on her. Ah, don't touch me, Jasmine fought back, her hands held up protectively. Ethan's eyes turned icy. He lifted his foot and kicked Aurora away. The powerful blow landed squarely on her lower abdomen. Aurora collapsed to the ground, breaking out in a cold sweat. She gasped for air, the pain in her stomach so intense she was close to blacking out. Realizing he'd gone too far, Ethan started to move toward her, but Jasmine grabbed him before he could take a step. She looked up at him with pitiful, teary eyes. Mr. Peterson, I don't feel well. What's wrong? He asked, his face etched with concern, completely forgetting about Aurora. He checked Jasmine from head to toe, then seemed to remember something. Aren't you the daughter of a traditional medicine doctor? Get over here and see what's wrong with Jasmine. Ethan walked over and forcefully dragged Aurora to her feet. Check on her now. Fearing she wouldn't comply, he added, if anything happens to Jasmine, your father will pay the price. Aurora looked at him with utter despair. The last flicker of warmth in her heart was extinguished. She fought through the pain in her body and reached out to take Jasmine's pulse. After about 10 seconds, Aurora's pupils constricted, her lips parted slightly. She's pregnant. Really? Jasmine feigned surprise and grabbed Ethan's hand. Mr. Peterson, did you hear that? I'm pregnant, in truth. She had known about the pregnancy for a while. Jasmine had considered many ways to reveal it, but in the end, she decided it would be much more amusing to have Aurora be the one to diagnose it. Just as she'd expected, watching the two of them embrace in joyful surprise, Aurora's face grew paler, her lips losing all color. Don't get the wrong idea. Jasmine is my employee, and of course, I'm happy for her that she's pregnant. Ethan turned to Aurora with a smile. You should go home for now. I'll be back to join you later. I want the pendant. She no longer cared about their relationship. All Aurora wanted now was to get back what belonged to her father. Here, take it. It's not like it's anything special. Jasmine, in high spirits, pulled the jade pendant from under the pillow and tossed it at Aurora's feet. I really don't know why you treasure it so much. Aurora lunged to retrieve the pendant from the floor. But no matter how fast she was, the pendant had already shattered into pieces upon impact. 2 streams of tears instantly rolled down her face. Chapter 7, Go home for now. I'll find someone to repair this pendant when I have time. Ethan's brow was furrowed. He stood in front of Jasmine, worried that Aurora might do something reckless in her emotional state. There is no later. Aurora's voice trembled. She pocketed the pieces of the pendant and, steadying herself against the wall, walked out of the room like a lost soul. As he watched her silhouette disappear, Ethan felt a sharp pang in his chest. What did she mean, there is no later? Whatever, he thought. She's probably just throwing a tantrum. She'll be over it in a few days. After reassuring himself, Ethan turned his attention back to Jasmine, his face filled with the joy of impending fatherhood. Jasmine, I promise I'll protect you and our child, Jasmine replied softly. I believe you. They held each other in a sweet embrace, while on the other side of the city, Aurora was already drowning in tears. When she got home, the first thing she did was swallow a painkiller. Perhaps due to long-term stress and malnutrition, her menstrual cramps lasted for 3 full days and nights. By the morning of the 4th day, she finally felt a little better. She opened her eyes to see Ethan, who hadn't been home for days. Unlike Aurora's pale and drawn face, Ethan was glowing, his entire demeanor as bright as it had been when they were first in love. You're awake. I have something important to tell you. He showed no concern for her health, getting straight to the point. Jasmine got involved with a bad guy. She's pregnant, but her boyfriend won't take responsibility. She's afraid her parents will worry, so she wants me to pretend to be her boyfriend and have dinner with them. You don't mind, do you? Aurora's body stiffened, and a bitter smile touched her lips. It must have been hard for him to come up with such a clumsy lie. I don't mind. Go ahead, she replied softly. I knew my Aurora was the most understanding. Ethan didn't notice the insincerity in her voice and leaned in to place an affectionate kiss on her forehead. On your birthday next month, I promise I'll clear my schedule to spend the day with you. We can go visit your father together then. Aurora's eyelashes fluttered. Next month? But Ethan, we only have 5 days left. She wanted to tell him that she was leaving, that she wanted to spend their last few days together on good terms. But before she could speak, Ethan's phone rang. Mr. Peterson, my parents arrived early. I don't know what to do. It was Jasmine, crying on the other end. Ethan hesitated for only a second before abandoning Aurora and rushing out the door. He didn't return for another 4 days. During that time, Jasmine would intermittently send her taunting messages, but Aurora's heart had grown numb. Nothing she saw could hurt her anymore. On the morning of her departure, she received a text from Mr. Sterling. He said a car would be there to pick her up around 9 p.m. Aurora replied with a simple okay and began clearing out the last of her belongings from the house. Around 10 a.m., a package suddenly arrived. She opened it and found the Azure Dream, the necklace Ethan had once bought her for $5 million. Aurora had adored the necklace, but when her father fell ill, she had followed Ethan's suggestion and sold it to raise money for his medical bills. Her heart fluttered. How had the necklace come back? Did Ethan buy it for her? Chapter 8, just as a flicker of hope ignited in Aurora's heart, Jasmine's call came through. Miss Hawthorne, the package you just signed for was sent by mistake by Mr. Peterson. Could you please bring it to the New Haven Hotel? Mr. Peterson said he needs it urgently. Aurora froze for a few seconds. All right, I'll be there now. She suddenly wanted to know what Ethan intended to do with the azure dream now that he had it back. She took a cab to the hotel with the necklace, but when she got out and saw what was in front of her, she was stunned. A giant poster of Ethan and Jasmine stood at the entrance, with the words EJ Engagement Party written across it. Aurora's eyes instantly turned red. Led by a doorman, she walked step by step through the banquet hall to the dressing room door. Just as she arrived, Ethan and Jasmine's mother came out, and they ran right into each other. Seeing her, Ethan became visibly nervous, his pupils dilating. "What are you doing here?" "Ethan, who is this?" Jasmine's mother asked, frowning. "Oh, she's our family's maid." A flash of panic crossed Ethan's eyes. "Auntie, why don't you go back inside and stay with Jasmine? I'll just ask her what she needs." Ethan pulled Aurora to a corner of the staircase, his voice low. "Who told you to come here?" How ridiculous, she thought. 6 years of love, and now I'm just his family's maid. Aurora fought back the pain in her heart and held out the azure dream necklace. "Miss Lowell asked me to deliver this. Congratulations on your engagement." "You've misunderstood," Ethan began to explain. "Didn't I tell you before? I'm just pretending to be Jasmine's boyfriend." "Pretending?" Aurora's lips curled into a sarcastic smile. "You're pretending with an engagement party, and you're using the exact engagement plan that we never got to use a year ago." Her voice was filled with sorrow. Aurora had thought her heart was dead to Ethan, but seeing the familiar decorations and layout of the engagement party still hurt her deeply. Ethan stared into her eyes. "It really is just an act. Don't you believe me?" They looked at each other for a full half-minute. As a tear slid down her cheek, Aurora nodded heavily. "Fine, I believe you. If you say it's an act, then it's an act." Ethan let out a sigh of relief. "Good. Just go home for now. I'll explain everything properly after the party is over, okay?" Aurora whispered her agreement and dragged her weary body away. The moment she stepped out of the hotel, she received another taunting, boastful text from Jasmine. It was a photo of Jasmine wearing the azure dream, held tightly in Ethan's arms. "Mr. Peterson said that only I am worthy of the azure dream. He has always loved me. By the way, he also said that once our baby is born, he's going to cut off your father's medical funds. Doesn't feel good, does it? But you have to understand, my child is far more useful than your half-dead father." Aurora turned off her phone and took a deep breath. This is for the best. They're getting married. No one is holding anyone back. She spent the next few agonizing hours alone, her mind replaying her years with Ethan over and over. At 8:30 p.m., the sky erupted in a brilliant display of fireworks that lasted for a full half-hour. Aurora knew they were for Jasmine, from Ethan. It was the final part of the engagement party, a detail that she and Ethan had planned together a year ago. The moment the fireworks faded, Aurora received messages from both Mr. Sterling and Ethan simultaneously. Mr. Sterling said the car had arrived. Without hesitation, she dragged her suitcase out the front door. Only after she was settled in the car with the door closed did she open her chat with Ethan. "Aurora, I'm too busy tonight to get away. I'll come back and explain tomorrow." Aurora sighed and quickly typed 3 words, "No need." With that, she blocked and deleted all of Ethan's contact information. Taking one last look at the house filled with so many memories, Aurora said silently in her heart, "Ethan Peterson, goodbye forever." As the car sped away, familiar sights faded into the distance. There would be no trace of Aurora Hawthorne left in the city. Chapter 9, a few hours later, the car carrying Aurora pulled up in front of the Sterling family's villa. As soon as the door opened, Aurora saw Mr. Sterling standing at the entrance, having waited for some time. Seeing her get out, a housekeeper behind him immediately came forward with a warm smile to take her luggage. "Welcome home, Miss Hawthorne." The housekeeper had said home, which meant Mr. Sterling had already announced his son's marriage to Aurora. Aurora walked forward and greeted everyone with poise and grace. Arthur Sterling nodded kindly. "Aurora, you must be tired from the journey. I've already sent someone to arrange for your father's transfer to a new hospital. We've found the best neurosurgeon in the country for him. Don't worry, you can go to your room and rest. After you meet my son tomorrow, I'll take you to see your father." Aurora smiled slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling." She felt at ease with Mr. Sterling. He was a highly respected and successful entrepreneur in the business world. She had even audited one of his finance lectures in college. With Mr. Sterling's vast fortune. He would never have sought out a girl from a family like hers to be his daughter-in-law if his son hadn't been disabled in a car accident. Following the housekeeper into the villa, Aurora surveyed the bedroom that had been prepared for her. The walls were painted a warm cream color. It had an en-suite bathroom and a spacious walk-in closet. On the bookshelf were several books on traditional medicine. Aurora felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in a long time. Mr. Sterling truly was a masterful planner, attending to even the smallest details. She lay down on the bed, cleared her mind of everything, and fell into a deep sleep. Meanwhile, Ethan, still unaware of her departure, had finally finished with Jasmine. He opened his phone and saw Aurora's final message. No need. His eyelids twitched, and a terrible premonition washed over him. Sure enough, when he tried to send another message, a red exclamation mark appeared. He started calling her, trying every possible way to contact her, but his efforts were met with silence. Jasmine, I have to go home and check. Aurora has blocked all of my contacts. Ethan shot up, grabbing his clothes and throwing them on haphazardly. Can't you stay with me a little longer? Jasmine pouted. We just got engaged yesterday, and my parents haven't even left town yet. They'll get suspicious if you leave now. How about I go back and explain things to Aurora, and then I'll come back to you? Ethan coaxed. Thinking about his recent coldness toward Aurora, a sense of panic began to set in. He felt that something was very wrong with her. No, Jasmine said, rising to wrap her arms around his. Stay with me and the baby. You can explain it to her tomorrow, can't you? No. Ethan firmly refused, pushing her away. You need to understand that I only agreed to this engagement for the sake of the child. But an engagement is just an engagement. The most important woman in my life is Aurora, and the only person I will ever marry is Aurora. She was with me when I had nothing, helping me build my business. I can't betray her. With that, Ethan grabbed his car keys and sped home. Chapter 10, at the same time, after a long sleep, Aurora slowly opened her eyes. Warm sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the entire room. She stretched, feeling more refreshed than she had in ages. Mr. Sterling was out, and the housekeepers and butler were all busy with their duties. The second floor, where her bedroom was located, was completely quiet. She pushed open her door, planning to explore the villa, but she was immediately noticed by the butler. Miss Hawthorne, the young master has instructed that you see him as soon as you wake up. The young master. Is that Mr. Sterling's son? Aurora asked. The butler smiled and nodded. Yes. Then please take me to him. Having not yet met Mr. Sterling's son, Aurora was curious about her fiancé. The butler led her to the study and opened the door. A young man in a dark gray sweater sat with his back to the entrance. His hands were clasped as he sat in a plush chair, and a large desk blocked Aurora's view, allowing her to see only his upper body. When he heard the butler close the door, the man finally spoke, his voice low. You must be the woman my father found to marry me. Let me tell you, I'm already in love with someone else. I will not marry you. You should give up and leave now. Aurora found his voice strangely familiar. She paused for a few seconds before tentatively asking, Julian Sterling? The man with his back to her froze, his eyes widening at the sound of his name. Julian Sterling slowly turned his wheelchair around. When he saw Aurora's face, his mind went completely blank. How can it be you? Aurora was just as shocked. Back in college, both Ethan and Julian had pursued her. Initially, she had been more drawn to Julian. But after one summer break, Julian suddenly vanished without a trace. No one knew where he had gone. Later, Aurora heard he had moved abroad with a new girlfriend and had no plans to return. With his rival gone, it was only natural that a few months later, Aurora and Ethan got together. She never imagined that their reunion would be under these circumstances. So you disappeared back then because you were injured in a car accident? Aurora glanced at his legs in the wheelchair. Seeing the woman he had admired for so long again, Julian felt flustered. He grabbed a nearby blanket and covered his legs, ashamed. You had to see me in such an embarrassing state. Why would you say that? Aurora frowned instinctively. Julian's condition reminded her of her father. My dad was also seriously injured in a car accident. He's in much worse shape than you. He hasn't woken up in over a year. There's nothing embarrassing about your situation. Julian's lips trembled slightly. You don't mind. When I agreed to marry you, I already knew about your condition, Aurora said earnestly. I didn't mind then, and now that I know you're Julian Sterling, I mind even less. The moment she finished speaking, Julian's eyes welled up with emotion. He wanted to respond, but the next second, her phone rang, shattering the beautiful atmosphere between them. I'm sorry, just a moment. Aurora looked down at the screen. It was an unknown number, but she recognized the area code immediately. It had to be Ethan. HMPH. It took him this long to finally try and find me. Without a second thought, Aurora declined the call. To prevent any further harassment, she simply removed the SIM card from her phone and turned back to continue her conversation with Julian. On the other end, Ethan was on the verge of madness. He stared at the empty rooms of their home, a suffocating pain rising in his chest. Aurora, please, pick up the phone. Ethan paced frantically around the living room, dialing her number over and over again. Chapter 11, after trying every possible method, Ethan still couldn't reach Aurora. Only then did the gravity of the situation hit him. It seemed Aurora had truly given up and left him. Ethan searched the entire house, the living room, the bedroom, the study. There was no sign of Aurora. The photo wall in the study had been emptied at some point. Even the large, framed photo from his proposal was gone. Aurora, Ethan called her name again and again, but the only response was the faint echo of his own voice. Aurora must have seen me and Jasmine getting engaged and gotten jealous. Yes, that has to be it. Ethan frantically tried to console himself. It was all Jasmine's fault. If she hadn't told Aurora to deliver that damn necklace, Aurora would never have come to the engagement party and found out. But Aurora, you really misunderstood. Ethan whispered to her number on his phone. It was just an engagement. I'm not really going to marry her. You're the one I want to marry? Ethan sat on the living room sofa for the entire day, desperately hoping to see Aurora walk through the door again. Around 10 o'clock that night, he heard the sound of a key in the lock. He shot up from the sofa. Aurora, you're back? Ethan rushed to the door, his face alight with excitement. But when he saw who it was, his expression soured. What are you doing here? Jasmine looked hurt. Can I come see you? I'm carrying your child. Get out, Ethan growled. I don't have time to deal with you right now. Don't be so harsh, Jasmine cooed, just as she always had. She held up a food container. Look at how pale you are. You must not have eaten all day. Here, have something to eat. The aroma of food wafted into his nose, and Ethan's stomach rumbled. He was indeed starving. Just leave as soon as you can. I don't want Aurora to see you here and get the wrong idea again. Ethan took the container and went back to the sofa to eat. Jasmine scanned the house. Many things were missing. Even all the women's shoes were gone from the shoe cabinet. She sat down on the sofa and asked, Did Miss Hawthorne run away from home? Ethan shot her a glare. What do you mean, run away? Aurora is just upset, so she went out for a walk. She'll be back soon. Is that so? For some reason, I don't think she's coming back, Jasmine said nonchalantly. If she were just out for a walk, why would she have taken so many of her things? What are you talking about? Ethan grabbed her wrist and shouted, Why wouldn't Aurora come back? This is her home. Jasmine had never seen Ethan this furious. She turned pale with fear. Okay, Mr. Peterson, calm down. Miss Hawthorne will definitely come back. Ethan's expression softened slightly. He let go of her hand and continued eating. But by the time he finished, Aurora still hadn't returned. 11 o'clock, 1 in the morning, 5 in the morning. No one but Jasmine had come through the door. As dawn broke, Jasmine, who had stayed with him all night, couldn't hold on any longer. She spoke softly. Mr. Peterson, why don't you get some rest? She touched her belly. I'm sure the baby doesn't want to see his father so tired. Maybe when you wake up, Miss Hawthorne will be back. The thought of the child in Jasmine's womb softened Ethan's heart. Fine, I'll go sleep in the master bedroom for a bit. You can rest in the guest room. Chapter 12, Jasmine tentatively asked, Why don't the baby and I sleep with you? No, Ethan roared. What if Aurora comes back and sees you? How would I explain that? His sudden outburst startled Jasmine. Then I'll go to the guest room. She quickly retreated from his sight, not daring to suggest any more intimacy. Lying in bed, Jasmine shook her head. How ridiculous. He really thinks Aurora is coming back. As a woman, Jasmine knew that this was no simple act of running away. And as Ethan's secretary, she had done her research before coming over. Dr. Hawthorne had been transferred to another hospital on the very day Aurora had left. Jasmine saw it clearly. Aurora valued her father above all else. For her to risk angering Ethan by taking her father with her meant she had already found a way out and had no intention of returning. It was a shame Ethan couldn't see it. "Don't worry, Ethan," Jasmine purred with a smile. "Without Aurora, you still have me and the baby. We'll both be here for you." Aurora's departure was a golden opportunity for Jasmine. With her gone, Jasmine could smoothly transition from a fake engagement to a real marriage with Ethan. A few hours later, Ethan woke up to find no sign of Aurora. An overwhelming sense of loneliness washed over him. He wanted to call Aurora's friends to see if they knew where she was, but as he picked up his phone, he realized he didn't know who to call. Ever since her father's accident, Aurora's entire world had revolved around his condition. Aside from Ethan, she had no other friends. Wait, her father is still in the hospital, the crucial detail hit him. He immediately found the number for Dr. Hawthorne's physician and dialed it. "Are you referring to Dr. Hawthorne?" the doctor asked. After checking his records, he replied, "He's already been transferred." "Transferred where?" Ethan clenched his fist, a new wave of panic rising in his chest. The doctor sounded apologetic. "I'm sorry, but that's considered private patient information. We can't disclose that." "What privacy? I'm his son-in-law. I've been paying his medical bills for over a year. Why can't you tell me where he was transferred?" "I'm truly sorry," the doctor reiterated. "If you really want to know, you'll have to ask his immediate family." With that, the doctor hung up. A sharp pain seized Ethan's heart. He couldn't believe it. Why would Aurora transfer her father? Where did she get the money? He suddenly remembered her reply on the night of the engagement. "No need." At the time, Ethan had thought she said it because she trusted him completely and felt no explanation was necessary. But now, everything was telling him that no need was because she no longer cared, because she was leaving. "No, it's impossible." Ethan tried to banish the absurd thoughts from his mind. "Aurora and I have been together for 6 years. She would never leave me. There must be a misunderstanding." Ethan stormed into the guest room and dragged a sleeping Jasmine out of bed. "This is all your fault. Why did you tell Aurora to bring you the necklace?" His eyes were blazing with fury. "If it weren't for you, Aurora would never have been angry enough to leave." Chapter 13. Jasmine's lips turned white with shock. Ever since becoming Ethan's secret lover, she had never seen him lose his temper. "Ethan, calm down." She wrapped her arms around his waist. "Miss Hawthorne is gone, so what? You still have me and the baby. We're already engaged, so why don't we?" "Shut up," Ethan slapped her across the face. "Have I not made it clear to you that being engaged doesn't mean I'll marry you? The only woman who will ever stand by my side is Aurora." Jasmine stared in disbelief. She never thought the once gentle and considerate Ethan would ever hit her. She clutched her reddening cheek. "But she's gone now. What are you going to do about it?" "I'll say it again, she is not gone." Ethan's voice rose. "Go back to the company right now and get every employee to look for Aurora. Plaster the streets with missing person posters. If you can't find her, you can forget about your job as my secretary." Jasmine scrambled to her feet, looking disheveled. "Fine, I'll go right now." After she left, Ethan grabbed his car keys and headed out. He drove to every place he could remember them being together: the beach, the cafe, the mall. He searched every location that came to mind. But even so, he couldn't find the face he longed to see. Ethan parked his car in front of the university where he and Aurora had met. This was where their love story began. He wandered onto the campus. Benches by the scenic lake were filled with young people, as bright and full of life as he and Aurora had once been. Ethan suddenly remembered a promise he had made to her. He had told her that every year he would make time to come back to the university with her. "Aurora, I'm back. But where are you?" Ethan took a picture of the campus to send to her, but the red exclamation mark on the screen was a constant reminder that she had long since blocked all of his contacts. He walked out with his head hung low. At the school gate, he unexpectedly ran into one of his old professors. "Isn't that Ethan? I heard you and Aurora started a business together after graduation. It's been so long. Are you two married with kids yet?" Ethan forced a smile. "We're getting married soon. We were just talking about sending you an invitation." The professor beamed. "Wonderful, I'll look forward to celebrating with you both." "Of course." Ethan didn't know how to explain his current situation with Aurora, so he could only offer this white lie. After leaving the university, he felt like a wilted flower, sitting limply in the driver's seat of his car. "Aurora, where on earth are you?" A short while later, Jasmine called. "Do you have news about Aurora?" Ethan answered the phone, his face lighting up with hope. "No," Jasmine sounded troubled. "I had all the employees search for a whole day, but no one could find Miss Hawthorne." "Then why are you calling me?" "Useless," Jasmine tried her best to sound placating. "Please don't be angry. I have something very important to report. All of our partners for this quarter pulled their funding today. I honestly don't know what to do, so I had to call you." "What?" Ethan rubbed his throbbing temples. Aurora's disappearance was already giving him a massive headache. Why did the company have to run into trouble at the same time? Jasmine's voice was filled with worry. "I don't know either. Maybe you should call and ask them?" "You're completely useless." Ethan angrily hung up and began calling the partners who had pulled their investments, one by one. But most of them didn't answer. After nearly half a day of trying, only Mr. Collins, a longtime associate, picked up. Mr. Collins hemmed and hawed, but after Ethan's persistent questioning, he finally revealed the reason with a troubled expression. "You've been plastering missing person posters of Aurora Hawthorne all over the city. But what you don't seem to know is that Miss Hawthorne is now the daughter-in-law of the Sterling Group's CEO. Mr. Sterling found out what you were doing, and he's furious. Small companies like ours can't afford to offend him, so we had no choice but to pull out." Chapter 14, Aurora Hawthorne, the Sterling CEO's daughter-in-law? Ethan's jaw dropped. "Mr. Collins, we've worked together for so long. Don't you know that Aurora is my girlfriend? Since when did she become the daughter-in-law of the Sterling Group?" Mr. Collins sighed on the other end. "Mr. Peterson, you really shouldn't call Miss Hawthorne your girlfriend anymore. It would be disastrous if Mr. Sterling heard you." With that, he hung up. No matter how many times Ethan called back, no one answered. Ethan was on the verge of a breakdown. The company's crisis, coupled with Aurora's departure, was a devastating blow. For a moment, he didn't know how to handle the situation. He used all of his connections to find the address of the Sterling family's villa. "Aurora, wait for me. I will find you." Ethan refused to believe that Aurora would marry someone else. 6 years of their life together flashed before his eyes, Aurora's smiling face as clear as day. He repeated to himself over and over, "Aurora is just angry. She must have made up this lie to get back at me. There's no way she would marry someone else." Ethan drove at top speed to the Sterling family's gated community. But when he arrived, the sight before him sent his heart plunging into an abyss. In the garden, Aurora was pushing a wheelchair, laughing and talking intimately with Julian Sterling. Bathed in the sunlight, they looked like a match made in heaven. Ethan stood behind Aurora for a full 3 minutes before finally swallowing his pain and stepping forward. "Aurora, I've come to take you home." Upon seeing him, Aurora took a half step back in disgust. "How did you find this place?" After 6 years together, Ethan immediately understood the look in her eyes. "Aurora, do you hate me now? You don't want to come home with me? What are you trying to say?" Aurora frowned, looking at him as if he were an idiot. "I've moved all my things out. Do you still not understand what I mean?" "No, I don't," Ethan said, his eyes sincere. "Are your things old and you want to replace them? I can go shopping with you. You can have whatever you want. I just want you to come home with me." Aurora let out a cold laugh. "Playing dumb, are we? Fine. Since you don't get it, I'll tell you. I want to break up." Her every word was a dagger to his heart. "No, I don't believe you." He took 2 steps forward, reaching for her hand, but was blocked by Julian in his wheelchair. "Mr. Peterson, please have some self-respect. Aurora is my fiancé now." Only then did Ethan notice Julian. Seeing his condition, Ethan burst out laughing. "That Sterling kid. You couldn't compete with me back in college. What makes you think you can compete with me now? Do you have any idea that Aurora and I have been together for 6 years? What do you possibly have that can compete with me?" Aurora's face darkened. His arrogance only deepened her disgust for him. "We have broken up. Julian is right. I am his fiancé now. Please leave and don't bother us again." Ethan's eyes widened. He could hear the seriousness and resolve in her tone. "Aurora, I don't believe you. You must still be angry about my fake engagement with Jasmine, right?" "I swear it really was fake. I'm not going to marry her. The only person I will ever marry is you. "But I'm not going to marry you," Aurora said flatly. After all the times he had hurt her, her heart had long since died. What was the point of talking about marriage now? "Then who will you marry? You're not going to marry this cripple, are you?" Ethan roared, pointing at Julian's legs. A sudden silence fell over the garden. Julian's hands, resting on the sides of his wheelchair, clenched into fists. His face flushed red, but he couldn't find the words to argue back. Chapter 15, Slap. Aurora stepped forward and struck him across the face. But Ethan wasn't angry at all. In fact, that slap was the only physical contact he'd had with her in days. The moment her palm connected with his cheek, Ethan felt her presence for real, as if she had never left. "Watch your mouth." Julian injured his legs. He is not a cripple. Aurora pushed the wheelchair back a few steps, her eyes filled with an undisguised loathing for Ethan. "He's still not good enough for you," Ethan pleaded. "Aurora, please, just come home with me." "Ethan, are you incapable of understanding plain English?" Aurora unleashed all the frustration that had been building up inside her. "I am not jealous of you and Jasmine. I am not throwing a tantrum to get your attention, and I will not be going home with you." She stood protectively in front of Julian. "This man you see here is my fiancé. We are getting married very soon. Do you understand? Can you leave now?" As if fearing he wouldn't believe her, Aurora walked over to her bag and pulled out a wedding invitation that Julian's father had custom ordered long ago. The gold foiled design was exquisite, and upon opening it, one could see the names of Aurora Hawthorne and Julian Sterling. She held the invitation up to Ethan's face. "Do you see this? I'm getting married." Ethan bit his dry lips. Staring at the invitation in her hand, he felt the pain in his heart intensify. "So what? You're not married yet. We were about to get married once too." He snatched the invitation and tore it to shreds, acting like a rabid dog. "You want to get married? Fine, let's go home. I'll take you to get the marriage license tomorrow. We'll have the wedding right after and make up for what we lost." Aurora slapped away the hand he extended toward her. "How did I never realize how clingy you are? You're like a piece of gum I can't scrape off my shoe." Fed up, Aurora called the villa's butler. Within moments, he arrived with several security guards. "Please remove this person," the guards bowed their heads. "Yes, Miss Hawthorne." "No, Aurora, don't make me leave." Ethan was dragged away by a guard on each arm. No matter how much he screamed, Aurora didn't spare him another glance. After he was gone, the garden returned to its previous tranquility, but the smile had vanished from Julian's face. His voice was low and hoarse. "Aurora, I think I'd like to go back to my room. Could you push me?" "Of course." Aurora carefully placed the blanket over his legs, gathered their things, and pushed him back to his room. After helping him into a soft chair, Aurora said gently, "I'll go get you something to eat." "Wait." Julian grabbed her hand. After a long hesitation, he said in a heavy voice, "Aurora, maybe we shouldn't get married." "Why?" Aurora was stunned. "Didn't you say you've had feelings for me all these years? Have you fallen for someone else like Ethan did?" "No, that's not it," Julian quickly denied, waving his hands. Aurora was the woman he had dreamed of for years. How could he possibly fall for someone else? "Then why?" Julian lowered his head. "I don't think I'm good enough for you. I'm just a cripple." He continued softly, "If it weren't for these useless legs, I never would have given up on you. A broken person like me didn't have the courage to pursue you back then, and I don't want to ruin the rest of your life now." Aurora sighed internally. She knew Ethan's words must have hurt him deeply. She tried to lighten the mood. "Are you not afraid I'll marry someone else? Do you want me to get back together with Ethan?" Julian's hands twisted together, his inner conflict clear. On one hand, he couldn't bear to lose the woman he had loved for so many years. On the other, he was deeply insecure about his legs. Finally, he clenched his jaw. Don't get back with him. He's not a good person. Ever since he learned that the marriage partner his father had found was Aurora, Julian had been quietly looking into her life over the past few years. When he discovered that she had endured a family member's accident and a lover's betrayal, he was filled with regret for ever letting her go to Ethan. He couldn't imagine how she had survived the past year. "If you don't want me to get back with him, then don't say things like that." Aurora gently tapped Julian's head. "Wait here, I'll bring you something to eat." Chapter 16. Aurora took a moment to compose herself downstairs before bringing up a plate of pastries. "Julian, I don't want you to give up on yourself." She held a piece of pastry to his lips. "There's a chance your legs can be healed, and even if they can't, I won't ever look down on you for it." I've seen cases like yours before when I was a child. In fact, that person's legs were in much worse condition than yours, but my dad still managed to heal him. Aurora told Julian about a patient her father had once successfully treated. It was a shame that she hadn't chosen to follow in her father's footsteps after graduation. Otherwise, she could have healed Julian's legs herself. I may not be as skilled as my dad, but I know a little. She took out the treatment plan she had been carefully drafting for the past few days. I was going to discuss this with your father before telling you, but since you brought it up, I won't hide it anymore. She took Julian's hand, her gaze firm and unwavering. Julian, do you trust that I can heal you? Julian's eyes flickered. Aurora was kneeling to be at eye level with him, showing him immense respect and sincerity. How could he possibly say anything to hurt the woman he loved when she asked him with such earnestness? I trust you. The moment he said it, a radiant smile bloomed on Aurora's face. That's all I need to hear. From now on, you have to cooperate with me fully. Julian was infected by her smile. He nodded emphatically, a long, absent grin spreading across his lips. After cheering Julian up, Aurora knocked on the door of Mr. Sterling's study that evening. Aurora, you're here, Arthur Sterling said warmly. I was just about to look for you. What's on your mind? Aurora nodded gently and placed the treatment plan she had prepared for Julian on his desk. Mr. Sterling, you have a wide network. I was hoping you could find a respected doctor to help me refine this treatment plan for Julian. I want to heal his legs. Arthur was astonished. He picked up the plan, his calloused hands trembling with excitement. Julian, he's willing to undergo treatment? He remembered how despondent Julian had been right after the accident. He couldn't accept becoming disabled and refused to cooperate with even the best doctors. Over time, his leg injuries were left untreated. Arthur never imagined that Julian would agree to treatment as soon as Aurora arrived, let alone that she would put so much effort into creating a plan for him. Aurora, having a daughter-in-law like you is a true blessing for the Sterling family. Arthur's eyes filled with tears. He gently patted her shoulder, unable to find the words to express his gratitude. Don't worry, I will have specialists review your plan, and I'll bring in doctors to assist you in healing Julian. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, Aurora smiled warmly. By the way, you mentioned you were looking for me. Was there something you needed? It's about your father. Arthur took a stack of documents from his drawer. His attending physician says they have a viable plan. He can have surgery in a few days, and the probability of a full recovery is very high. Really? Aurora was so excited she almost lost her balance. After more than a year, there was finally hope for her father to get better. Thank you, Mr. Sterling, my father and I will never forget your kindness. Aurora bowed deeply to him. We're family. There's no need for such formalities. Arthur reached out to help her up. However, there is something I feel I must tell you. His expression turned serious. According to my investigation, your father actually had a chance to make a full recovery 6 months ago. But at the time, the family member in charge did not approve the surgical plan. Aurora's pupils constricted as she tried desperately to recall the events of 6 months ago. How could that be? If surgery was an option, I would have agreed in a heartbeat. There's no way I would have refused. Suddenly, a thought struck her. I know, it must have been Ethan. He was the one who refused the surgery plan. 6 months ago, I had a high fever for a while, and he was the one communicating with the hospital about my father's condition. A heavy weight settled on Aurora's heart. She never thought Ethan could be so cruel as to deny her father a chance at recovery. She had always believed that, despite his cheating, he still had a basic conscience. After all, her father had been so good to him. How could he? Chapter 17, Aurora paced back and forth in the small garden below the villa. Winter was approaching, and the biting wind nipped at her cheeks, turning them rosy. She opened her phone, found Ethan's contact information, and pressed the call button. Miles away, Ethan was drowning in the chaos of his failing company. But the moment he saw Aurora's name on his screen, he dropped everything and snatched up the phone, his heart pounding. He was more nervous than he had ever been. Because his Aurora was finally contacting him, he knew it. He knew her talk of marrying someone else was a lie. She was just angry, trying to make him jealous. Aurora. Ethan answered the phone as if it were a precious jewel, hoping to hear her say she was coming back. Ethan Peterson, you disgust me. Aurora's icy tone shattered all of his beautiful dreams. He felt as though his heart had been torn to shreds, but he still clung to a sliver of hope. "Aurora, you called me. Does this mean you're not angry anymore?" he asked tentatively. "Not angry," Aurora scoffed. "Do you really think that's possible? I'm calling to hear you admit, in your own words, why you rejected the surgical plan the doctors proposed for my father 6 months ago." Thinking of all the suffering her father had endured, Aurora couldn't stop the tears from falling. She hated herself. She hated that she had to get sick at that exact moment, and she hated that she had entrusted her father's care to Ethan. If only she had been there, her father might have already had the surgery and recovered. He wouldn't have had to lie unconscious in a hospital for so long. "Ethan, you were the one who said you would cover my father's medical bills if I gave you all my shares. I transferred everything to you long ago, so why did you reject my father's treatment plan?" She was practically screaming the words. Ethan panicked, pacing back and forth. What rejection of a treatment plan? He didn't understand a single word she was saying. "Aurora, listen to me. I have always respected your father. Why would I ever reject his treatment?" Ethan racked his brain but couldn't recall when such a thing could have happened. "Who told you this? Was it the Sterlings? Aurora, they must be trying to drive a wedge between us. I swear I never did such a thing." Aurora's heart turned to ash. "You still won't admit it, even now." She was on the verge of breaking down. She never thought the man she had loved for 6 years could be so vicious. If she hadn't sought help from the Sterlings, if Mr. Sterling hadn't found doctors to treat her father, Aurora might never have seen him open his eyes again. "Ethan, I originally just wanted to make a clean break and go our separate ways. But things are different now," Aurora said with finality. "For doing something like this behind my back, I will hate you for the rest of my life." With that, she hung up and blocked his number once again. She deeply regretted ever finding a boyfriend like him. She had failed her father. Ethan listened to the dial tone on the other end, feeling his world crumble. It was the first time he had ever felt the helplessness of being falsely accused. He collapsed into his chair. This feeling of being misunderstood with no way to defend himself was unbearable. His chest was so tight he could barely breathe. He truly had no idea why Aurora would accuse him of rejecting the treatment plan. He may have used the medical bills to threaten her, but it was just a threat. He never had any intention of actually harming anyone. Moreover, for the past 6 months or so, Ethan hadn't been involved in anything related to her father's care. How could she blame this on him? Wait, 6 months ago? Ethan suddenly remembered that 6 months ago, he had hired Jasmine as his new secretary. From that point on, he had delegated many tasks to her. Chapter 18, after piecing things together, Ethan gritted his teeth. It must have been Jasmine. He stormed into the secretary's office and forcefully pulled Jasmine, who was in the middle of her work, to her feet. "Why did you reject the surgical plan for Aurora's father?" His eyes, red from several sleepless nights, were wide and menacing. His ferocious expression, combined with several days of stubble, made him look like a wild beast. Jasmine stumbled, grabbing her desk to stay upright. She was stunned. Why was he suddenly bringing up something that happened 6 months ago? "I didn't, Mr. Peterson, you must be mistaken." Slap. Ethan struck her across the face. "Do you take me for a fool? Who else could have made that decision on my behalf?" The other secretaries in the office saw the scene and quickly filed out. They closed the door and pressed their ears against it, eager for the drama. Everyone knew that Ethan was keeping Jasmine as his mistress. When they got engaged, they had all assumed she had successfully won her place. But judging by Ethan's attitude today, her position seemed anything but secure. "You hit me again. Have you forgotten that I'm carrying your child?" Jasmine's voice was choked with sobs, her face a mask of grievance. She couldn't believe it. Where was the Ethan who had defended her so fiercely at that business dinner? Why had he been lashing out at her constantly these past few days? Ethan's voice was cold. "Even with a child, you'll never be as important as my Aurora. You and I were just a fling. Aurora and I are true love. You dared to harm Aurora's father. As his son-in-law, I will get justice for him." Ethan dragged Jasmine downstairs, shoved her into his car, and said heartlessly, "You're getting rid of that child immediately. Consider it your apology to Aurora." "No," Jasmine screamed, her voice filled with anguish. "Ethan, this is your child, too. Aurora and I will have plenty of children in the future," Ethan retorted firmly. He sped toward the hospital. Left with no other option, Jasmine called the police. The police intercepted Ethan at the hospital entrance. "Sir, only the mother has the right to decide whether to terminate a pregnancy. You cannot force this woman to have an abortion." Ethan was furious. "It's my child too. What business is it of yours? If you continue to act this rashly, we will have to take you into custody." A police baton was brandished in front of him, and Ethan was forced to take a step back. He realized he might have been too impulsive, but he felt he had no choice. If he didn't do this, how would Aurora ever forgive him? Ethan took a deep breath. "Officer, I'm sorry, I wasn't thinking clearly." He calmed down and chose a different form of revenge. Ethan contacted Jasmine's parents and demanded they return all the money he had given their family. But he didn't stop there. He fired Jasmine from her secretarial position and took back all the clothes, bags, and even the house and car he had bought for her. "Jasmine, if you're willing to get rid of the child, I'll give you a generous compensation. But if you refuse, I will never acknowledge this child, and you can forget about getting any child support." Ethan shoved Jasmine to the ground and loomed over her, delivering his warning. "Can you really be so heartless?" Ethan slapped her again. "Heartless? Was it not heartless of you to make Aurora come to our engagement party? Was it not heartless of you to reject her father's treatment plan on your own authority?" The realization hit him belatedly. He couldn't imagine the pain Aurora must have felt that day, seeing him engaged to another woman. After all, he had promised her that he would only ever love her. "Fine," Jasmine finally relented. "I'll get rid of the child." Chapter 19, Ethan took the report confirming Jasmine's abortion and went to find Aurora again. He stood before her, as nervous as a schoolboy, his eyes filled with anxiety. "Aurora, look, I've punished Jasmine. She was the one who went behind our backs and rejected the doctor's surgical plan. I've gotten rid of her. Aurora, will you please come home with me?" Ethan was wearing the same suit he had worn when he proposed to her. He had also taken back the Azure Dream necklace from Jasmine. He knew it was Aurora's favorite necklace, and he hoped that, by giving it back to her, she might find it in her heart to give him another chance. Aurora glanced at the medical report, but made no move to take the necklace. If Ethan had returned the Azure Dream to her 2 weeks ago, perhaps he might have stood a chance. But now, nothing about him mattered to her anymore. "Even if Jasmine was the one who did it, you are not blameless," Aurora said, her voice like ice. "If you hadn't given her so much power, she never would have dared to meddle in my father's affairs. Ultimately, it's all your fault. Do you think getting rid of a child is enough to make me forgive you? Impossible." Aurora turned to leave, but Ethan quickly grabbed her arm. "Aurora, don't go. Let go of Miss Hawthorne." The moment Ethan's hand touched her, security guards from the Sterling household appeared from 2 directions and restrained him. "Aurora, what do I have to do to make you forgive me?" Ethan shouted. Aurora stopped. She couldn't remember their relationship ever being this strained. It was the first time she had ever been so cold to him. Thinking back on their 6 years together, she turned to look at him one last time. "Ethan, I will never forgive you. Did you think I didn't know Jasmine's child was yours? Did you really think those clumsy lies could fool me? Even if you had never harmed my father, even if you had nothing to do with anything Jasmine did, I still would never get back together with you. Because you cheated." Ethan's mind went blank. He didn't know how Aurora had found out about his affair. He had been so sure he had hidden it well. He always had a plausible excuse, and Aurora always ended up believing him. "How did she find out?" "I didn't," he denied instinctively. "You still want to argue?" Aurora sighed and shook her head. The man standing before her was becoming more and more of a stranger. "We both know the truth. I don't want to fight with you. I'm tired. You should go, and don't bother me again." With those final words, Aurora turned and walked back into the Sterling villa without a second glance. Julian was sitting anxiously on the living room sofa. He only relaxed when he saw her return. "Aurora, I was afraid you weren't coming back." "Why would you think that?" Aurora smiled gently. "You're my fiancé. Of course, I'll always come back to you." Her words swept away all the dark clouds in Julian's heart. "Thank you for choosing me." He pulled her into his arms, his eyes overflowing with love. Julian had been terrified. He had worried that Aurora's heart might soften and she would choose to get back together with Ethan. He had even prepared for the worst-case scenario. If Aurora truly wanted to reconcile, he wouldn't stand in her way. He would even give her a generous dowry. Even if he wasn't the one by her side, he still wished for her happiness. But Aurora had come back. She hadn't chosen Ethan. All his worries had been for nothing. His Aurora had stayed by his side. "You don't have to thank me. We chose each other." Aurora wrapped her arms around his neck and looked at him earnestly. Chapter 20. Ethan returned home, utterly dejected. He lay in bed and shed a few tears. Aurora had been ruthless, so ruthless that she had even replaced the pillows and blankets. She didn't want to leave even a trace of her scent in this house. Every day, Ethan walked around like a man who had lost his soul. In a desperate attempt to win her back, he went to the Sterlings' gated community every day, waiting and watching, hoping she would have a change of heart. One day, Aurora and Julian were out in the garden enjoying the sun when she noticed Ethan hiding in a corner. The sun was warm and bright. Aurora leaned down and gently kissed Julian on the cheek. The heart that Ethan had painstakingly pieced back together shattered once more. So this was what it felt like to see the person you love being intimate with someone else. He felt as if he was finally experiencing what Aurora must have felt when she saw him and Jasmine together. Julian blushed. It was the first time a woman other than his mother had ever kissed him. He mustered his courage and returned the kiss. From a distance, Ethan felt the pain in his heart deepen. He was like a rat in the gutter, hiding in the shadows and spying on someone else's happiness. Some time passed. With the help of doctors and Aurora, Julian was now able to try walking with crutches. They still took daily walks in the garden, and Ethan never missed a day of his secret surveillance. Ethan felt that just being able to see Aurora's face from a distance every day was a blessing. But his happiness was short-lived. The moment Julian discovered Ethan's spying, he called the Sterling group and instructed them to create more trouble for Ethan's company. Julian couldn't stand his blatant and intrusive gaze any longer. With Ethan bogged down by company problems, Aurora and Julian's world was finally free of the clingy pest. Julian looked lovingly at Aurora as she administered acupuncture for him. "Aurora, you're so beautiful." He gently caressed her cheek, his eyes filled with a reverence one would reserve for a priceless treasure. Aurora chuckled. "You're very handsome, too." She pulled out an old group photo from their college days. "Look how handsome you were." Aurora pointed to Julian in the photo. "To be honest, I was more interested in you back then. But you suddenly disappeared without a word, and out of spite, I ended up with someone else." Julian gave a bitter smile. "That won't happen again. From now on, no matter what, I will never leave you." He had chosen to disappear back then out of insecurity, feeling he wasn't good enough for her. But not anymore. He would never give up on Aurora again. Julian diligently followed the rehabilitation plan prepared by the doctors and Aurora. He drank all the dark, bitter herbal medicines without a single complaint. He didn't want to disappoint Aurora, nor did he want to remain disabled forever. He wanted to stand by her side, whole and strong, and be her protector for the rest of his life. Seeing Julian's transformation these past few days, Arthur Sterling felt a deep sense of relief and pride. "Thank goodness I brought Aurora back. Otherwise, who knows how long it would have taken for Julian to get back on his feet." He sat in his study, laughing heartily, completely satisfied with his future daughter-in-law. To clear the path for his son, Arthur had even specifically instructed his peers in the industry to be as ruthless as possible with Ethan, hoping to scare him away from ever bothering Aurora again. Chapter 21. Ethan was on the verge of collapse. One by one, his partners terminated their contracts, and no new ones were willing to work with him. He was experiencing a level of failure he had never known. Ethan had never imagined he would end up in such a state. He collapsed. He fainted right there in his office. His employees rushed him to the hospital but didn't know who to contact. After an hour of discussion, they finally decided to call Aurora. "Why are you calling me? We broke up a long time ago." Aurora was about to hang up, but the employee quickly added, "Miss Hawthorne, if you don't do something, he might actually die." The employee turned on the video call, aiming the camera directly at Ethan's face. He was unconscious on the white hospital bed, hooked up to IV drips, looking so haggard he seemed on the brink of death. "If he wants to die, let him. It has nothing to do with me." Aurora hung up without a shred of pity. A day and a night later, Ethan woke up. The first thing he asked was, "Did Aurora come to see me?" The employee by his side shook his head. "Mr. Peterson, you should give up. Miss Hawthorne really doesn't love you anymore." The employee even played back the recording of his call with Aurora. Seeing the look of utter despair on Ethan's face after he heard it, the employee couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy. "Mr. Peterson, it's rare to see a man as devoted as you. It's a shame Miss Hawthorne is blind to your good qualities. How about I introduce you to my cousin? She's around the same age as Miss Hawthorne and has never been in a relationship. If you were with her..." "Get out." Before the employee could finish, Ethan had thrown him out of the room. "Fine, I'll leave. What's with the attitude? No good deed goes unpunished." The employee grumbled under his breath. The hospital room was once again empty, leaving Ethan alone with his misery. In the past, whenever he was sick, no matter how minor, Aurora would stay by his side, taking care of him without ever leaving. But this time, he was on the verge of death and Aurora hadn't even come to see him. Ethan couldn't get used to it. Was it possible? Had she really stopped loving him? He refused to believe this cruel reality. At the Sterling residence. "Aurora, I want to take you somewhere." Julian wheeled himself over to Aurora and handed her a wool coat. "Where are we going? Is it far?" Aurora put down the medical book she was reading, her eyes soft and gentle. Since moving into the Sterling home, her complexion had improved dramatically. Her once gaunt face had filled out again. Now, a simple smile from Aurora was enough to captivate Julian completely. "A little far, but I've already asked the driver to get the car." "All right, if you want to go, I'll go with you." She carefully tied a scarf around Julian's neck. "It's cold outside. You need to stay warm." Julian's lips curved into a smile, and he beamed at her. Thinking about their destination, Julian couldn't contain his excitement. "I hope Aurora likes it," he thought. The driver navigated through one intersection after another. 40 minutes later, they finally stopped in front of a light blue shipping container. Aurora pushed Julian toward it, a sense of happy anticipation bubbling inside her. She was eager to see what surprise he had prepared. The container door required a password. Aurora turned to Julian and asked softly, "Julian, what's the password?" His handsome face flushed slightly. "It's your birthday." The sun hung high in the sky as fine snowflakes drifted down onto them. Aurora broke into a joyful smile. She turned and entered her birthday. With a soft beep, the door opened. A field of hawthorn blossoms stretched out before her eyes. Unlike the biting cold outside, it was incredibly warm inside. The blossoms were in full bloom, and soft lights scattered around them cast a protective halo over the petals. Aurora was stunned, so shocked she couldn't form a complete sentence. In the middle of winter, how can there be hawthorn blossoms? Julian took her hand and gently pressed a kiss to the back of it. "Aurora, even in the dead of winter, beautiful flowers can still bloom." He didn't tell her how much effort it had taken to cultivate this field of flowers. He looked up and met her gaze, his eyes filled with deep emotion. "Aurora, I thought I would never see you again. It was fate that brought us back together. Your appearance warmed the winter in my heart. I want to tell you that I love you. I have loved you for many years." Julian took a diamond ring from his pocket. "Aurora, happy birthday. Will you marry me?" Chapter 22, a gentle breeze rustled outside, causing the entire field of hawthorn blossoms to sway as if they were cheering for this romantic proposal. Their marriage had been arranged by Mr. Sterling long ago. Aurora had never expected Julian to go to such great lengths to plan a proposal. She looked at the sincere man before her, the faint floral scent filling the air, and tears of joy streamed down her cheeks. Aurora had never thought she could experience such a happy moment. In fact, she had completely forgotten it was her birthday. Ever since her father fell ill, she hadn't celebrated a single holiday, let alone been treated with such thoughtfulness. "I will." Aurora was sobbing, but she nodded emphatically. "Julian, I will marry you." "Good, good." Julian was ecstatic. With trembling hands, he placed the diamond ring on her finger. Witnessed by the field of hawthorn blossoms, they shared a happy, loving kiss, the sunlight shining down on them like a gift from the heavens. After 6 years, Julian had finally won Aurora's heart. A tragic accident had left him disabled, and at the time, he had cursed the heavens for their injustice. But in this moment, Julian felt like the luckiest man in the world. On their way back, Aurora and Julian received a call from the hospital. They said her father had woken up. Hearing this news, Aurora trembled with excitement. "Julian, my father's awake?" "I heard," Julian said, gently patting her back. "He must have known it was your birthday and wanted to give you a surprise." He told the driver to turn around and head to the hospital. Led by a nurse, Aurora arrived at her father's room. Seeing the color return to his familiar face, Aurora couldn't help but burst into tears and rush to his side. "Dad, you're finally awake." "My dear daughter." Doctor Hawthorne was still very weak, but he reached out and gently stroked her head. "You've worked so hard, taking care of me for so long." "It wasn't hard at all. You're the one who suffered, being in the hospital for so long." Aurora's eyes were blurred with tears. After waiting for over a year, her father was finally awake. Aurora was overjoyed. Julian waited quietly at the door of the hospital room. He knew that after being apart for so long, the father and daughter would have a lot to talk about. He didn't want to intrude, choosing to give them their private space. They talked for the entire afternoon, pouring out all the thoughts and feelings they had held back for so long. As evening approached, Aurora sent Julian a text, asking him to come into the room. Blushing, Aurora whispered, "Dad, I'd like you to meet my fiancé." The next moment, Julian slowly wheeled himself in, a cake resting on his lap. "Hello, Mr. Hawthorne. My name is Julian Sterling. Today is Aurora's birthday, and since you've just woken up, I brought this cake so we could celebrate with you." Dr. Hawthorne was surprised to see that his daughter's fiancé was Julian. However, since his daughter hadn't mentioned Ethan all afternoon, he had already guessed that they had likely broken up. "Excellent." Dr. Hawthorne nodded kindly. "Let's celebrate Aurora's birthday together." Julian placed the cake on the table and lit the candles. Aurora clasped her hands together, the warm candlelight making her look exceptionally beautiful. With the man she loved and her most important family member by her side, Aurora felt this was the happiest birthday she had ever had. After they finished the cake, Dr. Hawthorne asked Julian about his legs. Fearing Julian might feel insecure, Aurora quickly jumped in. "Dad, Julian's legs can get better. I've been helping him with his rehabilitation every day." Dr. Hawthorne smiled. "My daughter has really grown up. She's a doctor now, treating patients." Seeing his daughter's playful devotion to Julian, Dr. Hawthorne was happy that she had found her own happiness. Of course, Aurora linked her arm with her father's and said playfully, "I'm your daughter after all. I wouldn't embarrass you, Dad. You need to get better quickly. If you were treating Julian, his legs would surely heal much faster." Dr. Hawthorne chuckled. All right. Dad will get better as soon as possible and help your sweetheart heal his legs." Chapter 23, Dr. Hawthorne still needed to be monitored at the hospital. As night fell, Julian and Aurora returned to the Sterling villa. The car stopped at the entrance of the gated community. Someone was blocking the road. Aurora looked closely and saw that it was Ethan again. He just won't give up. She got out of the car and walked over to him. Ethan was covered in snow, having clearly waited in the freezing winter weather for a long time. He was holding a pink, heart-shaped cake. When he saw Aurora, he rubbed his eyes. "Aurora, it really is you." His face lit up with joy, and he took 2 steps forward with the cake. "Today is your birthday. Happy birthday. I hope you'll always be happy. I made this cake myself. Do you like it?" Ethan's eyes were filled with the eager anticipation of a student waiting for a teacher's approval. He had spent 3 whole days learning how to make this cake for Aurora, failing countless times before finally succeeding. The filling was blueberry, Aurora's favorite. Ethan was sure that his Aurora would be moved by this gesture, but his fantasy did not come true. "I don't." Aurora knocked the cake out of his hands, her voice calm as she looked at him. "Ethan, how many times do I have to tell you? We have broken up. Stop harassing me." The cake lay shattered on the ground. Ethan felt utterly helpless. Tears welled in his eyes. "Aurora, don't you remember? We agreed that I would spend your birthday with you." "I never agreed to that. You're just imagining things." Aurora was truly disgusted by Ethan's persistent, clingy behavior. Did he really think that this harassment could make up for all the pain he had caused? "Do you think you're being very devoted right now?" Aurora laughed mockingly. "Who are you putting on this show for?" "Ethan, I know you too well. This isn't love. This is just your pride. You can't stand being the one who was dumped." Ethan scrambled to explain. "No, it's not pride. I really do love you." He couldn't understand. After he had waited for so long in the snow, could Aurora still not see his sincerity? Aurora's lips parted, her gaze as cold as ice. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have cheated." Cheating is a line that, once crossed, is crossed forever. The first time she discovered Ethan and Jasmine's affair, Aurora had planned to leave. But at the time, her father's illness depended on Ethan, so she had no choice but to endure the humiliation and stay. But things were different now. Her father was awake, and she had Julian by her side. She was finally happy. As for Ethan, even looking at him made her feel sick. Aurora's eyes narrowed, a sharp glint in them. "This is your last warning. Stay away from me if you dare to bother me again. I guarantee the Sterling family's security will not be so lenient." With that, she returned to the car and said gently to Julian, "Sorry for the wait. Let's go home." Before bed, Aurora went to Julian's room. She held the repaired Hawthorne family heirloom, the jade pendant. "Julian, this is for you." She explained the meaning of the pendant, her gaze soft and affectionate. "Thank you, I will always treasure it." Julian clutched it tightly in his hand and leaned in to gently embrace her. Meanwhile, Ethan, who had been driven away by the security guards, was filled with despair. Only then did he truly realize that Aurora wasn't joking or throwing a tantrum. She was really leaving him. Overcome with panic, Ethan resorted to an extreme measure. He would go to Aurora's father and beg for his help. Chapter 24, through relatives he had known from before, Ethan found the address of Dr. Hawthorne's hospital. As soon as he learned that Dr. Hawthorne was awake, he rushed to his room. The moment he saw him, Ethan dropped to his knees by the bedside. He wrung his hands anxiously. "Dad, please, convince Aurora to get back together with me. I really can't live without her." Dr. Hawthorne's brow furrowed, and his mouth tightened. "Ethan, please get up. You and Aurora are not married. You shouldn't call me Dad." Although he didn't know why Aurora had broken up with Ethan, as a father, he stood unconditionally by his daughter's side. "Aurora is with someone else now. You should find happiness elsewhere." "No," Ethan shook his head desperately. "Dad, don't you know that kid is disabled? Can you really bear to let Aurora marry someone like that?" Dr. Hawthorne chuckled. "You don't need to worry about that. My family has been practicing medicine for 3 generations. I have a good understanding of Julian's condition, and I will definitely heal him. But even if he's healed, there will be side effects. That's enough." Dr. Hawthorne cut him off. "Aurora will marry whomever she loves. I respect her decision. You should go now, and there's no need to visit me again." Dr. Hawthorne had made it clear he was not welcome. Fearing he would anger him further, Ethan had no choice but to leave. The Sterling Group officially announced the upcoming wedding of Julian Sterling and Aurora Hawthorne. Their wedding invitation was even used as the cover for the company's promotional materials. The extent to which the Sterling family valued Aurora was beyond anyone's imagination. Seeing the news plastered everywhere online, netizens expressed their envy from behind their screens. Only Ethan was unhappy with the marriage. After seeing the announcement from the Sterling Group, he fell ill and was bedridden for 3 days and nights. When he finally came to, he felt as if all the strength had been drained from his body. Even breathing was an effort. The crisis his company faced grew more severe with each passing day. Ethan felt he couldn't hold on any longer. He called a shareholders' meeting. By the end of it, they had unanimously decided to sell the company at a low price. After signing the contract with the buyer, Ethan walked out of the company building with heavy steps. He looked back at the building one last time, a single tear rolling down his cheek. "Aurora, the company we built with our own hands, it's gone now." Years of hard work had been destroyed. Ethan was utterly exhausted. He collapsed at the foot of the building. News of this, along with the acquisition of his company, reached Aurora's ears. But she didn't care in the slightest. Even knowing that Ethan was now as pathetic as a stray dog, she just shook her head gently. "Julian, we need to prepare for your acupuncture session." Aurora put down her phone, having no desire to see any more news about Ethan. The acupuncture technique she was using this time was an improved method developed by her father, far more effective than the previous one. After 2 weeks of continuous treatment, Julian was already able to try standing on his own. The moment he stood by himself, his eyes glistened with tears of joy. "Aurora, at this rate, I'm sure I'll be able to walk without a wheelchair or crutches by our wedding day." Aurora's eyes curved into crescent moons as she smiled. "I told you your legs would heal." Seeing Julian's radiant smile, Aurora felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Chapter 25, a month later, Julian took Aurora to a bridal shop. Looking at the dazzling array of wedding gowns and dresses, Aurora felt a sense of unreality. She had once dreamed of a wedding, but that person had let her down. She turned to look at Julian, and a warm feeling filled her heart. She believed that this time, she would not be disappointed. A sales associate approached them politely. "Welcome, what style of wedding dress are you looking for?" A smile played on Julian's lips. The most expensive and the most beautiful. The moment he said it, both the sales associate and Aurora burst out laughing. Aurora tugged on his sleeve. "Why the most expensive? A simple one will do." "Absolutely not," Julian said with a serious expression. "You only get married once in a lifetime. It has to be the best. Don't worry, I have plenty of money." Julian knew how much girls cared about looking beautiful, so he was not going to be stingy when it came to the wedding dress. The sales associate looked on with envy. She brought out the 10 best wedding dresses in the entire shop for them to choose from. Julian was even more invested than Aurora. He went up and felt the material and comfort of each dress. "No, this one is too scratchy. What if it hurts Aurora?" He shook his head and moved to the next one. "This one won't work either. It's too long. What if Aurora trips?" "This one is okay, but it feels like something is missing." By the 8th dress, Julian finally showed a satisfied expression. "Aurora, I think this one is perfect for you." Aurora smiled and nodded. "I was thinking the same thing. This is my favorite one too." "Really?" Julian lowered his head, a little embarrassed. "I guess we're on the same wavelength." With the help of the sales associate, Aurora changed into the wedding dress. The material was silky and soft, like wearing a cloud. "So beautiful," the associate complimented her generously. "Miss, you are as beautiful as your taste is good, and you found such a wonderful husband." Aurora peeked through a gap in the curtain at Julian, who was waiting anxiously on the sofa. His eager eyes were fixed in her direction, not distracted for a single moment. Aurora said from the heart, "Thank you. I think he's wonderful too." The moment she stepped out in the dress, Julian was captivated. He stood there, stunned, for a full 3 minutes before he could react. "Aurora, you look absolutely breathtaking. I am so lucky to be able to marry you." The sales associate secretly recorded a short video and posted it online. Half an hour later, it had been shared over 1 million times. Countless netizens commented below. I ship it, I really ship it." Lying in bed, Ethan saw the video. He felt as if his head was about to explode. "Aurora, you can't marry him." He used different numbers to frantically text Aurora. But he didn't know that she had long since changed her phone number. With no reply, Ethan's heart turned to ash. He grabbed the bottle of sleeping pills by his bed and poured them into his mouth. His head swam, and soon he fell into a deep, unconscious state. He had a dream. He dreamt that his Aurora had never left him and that they were deeply in love. In the dream, Ethan saw Aurora in a white wedding dress, walking slowly toward him. "Aurora, I knew you loved me." Ethan shed tears of joy as he took her arm and walked with her down the aisle. The music, the guests, everything was so beautiful and real. Aurora was so stunning that Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her. Aurora called his name shyly. "Ethan, snap out of it. Everyone is watching." "Ethan, Ethan." As the calls grew louder, Ethan shot up in bed. But the person before him was not the Aurora he longed for, but his mother. "Ethan, you're finally awake." Mrs. Peterson clutched his hand, her face stained with tears. "I was so afraid you would never wake up." Chapter 26, Ethan looked down and saw that he was in a hospital room with an IV in his hand. His mother sat beside him, weeping uncontrollably. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Seeing his mother's exhausted face, Ethan was filled with guilt. "How could I not be here when you're like this?" Mrs. Peterson's hair was almost half white, the lines on her face a testament to time. She had heard about everything from Ethan's friends and was heartbroken over her son's plight. "Ethan, it just wasn't meant to be with Aurora. Please, can you just let her go?" Ethan was incredulous. "Mom, how can you ask me to give up too?" He wished he could go back to his dream. He had been so close to marrying Aurora. "I will never give up on Aurora. It doesn't matter if you give up or not," his mother cried out, her voice filled with anguish. She took out her phone, opened the live stream of the Sterling Group's wedding, and showed it to Ethan. "Aurora has already married someone else." With trembling hands, Ethan took the phone. On the screen, the wedding march was just beginning to play. The guests sat in silence, waiting for the bride and groom to enter. The Sterling Group had spent $100 million on this wedding. As the music swelled, Dr. Hawthorne walked his daughter down the aisle. He solemnly placed Aurora's hand in Julian's. She is my only daughter. You must treat her well. Of course, Julian was radiant, his face beaming with joy. He had been in love with Aurora for 7 years. How could he not treat her well? The moment they exchanged rings, Julian's heart pounded wildly. Ethan couldn't watch anymore. He threw the phone down, ripped the IV from his arm, and, ignoring everyone's protests, drove frantically to the wedding venue. Aurora, you can't marry him. The security guards stationed outside immediately restrained the disruptive Ethan. We knew you'd come and cause trouble. We've been waiting for you, one of the guards spat at him. A guy like you wants to compete with our young master for his woman? Take a look in the mirror. Are you even worthy? Please, just let me in, Ethan begged, his voice low. He couldn't imagine how he would live the rest of his life if Aurora really married someone else. Let you in. In your dreams, the guard held him tightly. After what felt like an eternity, the guests began to leave. Ethan was left on the side of the road, shivering in his thin jacket. Suddenly, a pair of leather shoes appeared before him. Ethan's gaze traveled up the man's trousers. It was Aurora's father. Dad, you're here. Did Aurora change her mind? Don't call me Dad, Dr. Hawthorne frowned. Right, Mr. Hawthorne. Ethan lowered his head again, the light gone from his eyes. Get up, I need to have a talk with you. Doctor. Hawthorne pulled him up from the ground, put him in his car, and they drove to a coffee shop. Ethan, I once thought you were a good kid, that you would treat Aurora well. Dr. Hawthorne was the first to break the silence. But after talking to Aurora the other night, I learned about all the terrible things you did. You not only betrayed Aurora's love for you, but you also betrayed my trust. Remembering his past actions, Ethan was too ashamed to look up. I'm sorry. A cold glint flashed in Dr. Hawthorne's eyes. You don't need to apologize to me, because neither Aurora nor I will ever forgive you. He recounted all of Ethan's past deeds. He wanted nothing more than to drag Ethan up and beat him senseless. Aurora is married now. I won't hold the past against you, but I expect you to stop harassing her from now on. Dr. Hawthorne's intense gaze made Ethan's scalp tingle. He was silent for a few minutes before finally agreeing. Mr. Hawthorne, I'll listen to you. I won't go looking for Aurora again. After the lecture from Dr. Hawthorne, Ethan walked back to the hospital like a zombie. His mother rushed up and hugged him, crying, Ethan, you're finally back. I was so afraid you would do something you couldn't take back. Mom, please go. I want to be alone. Ethan pulled the covers over his head. A short while later, he heard the sound of fireworks outside. Colorful explosions bloomed across the sky. Ethan knew they were from the Sterling family for Aurora. Aurora. 2 streams of tears rolled down Ethan's face. He suddenly remembered the fireworks he had set off for his fake engagement with Jasmine. Clutching his aching heart, Ethan whispered, Aurora, I finally understand. This is what you must have felt that night. He was filled with unbearable regret. Chapter 27, after the wedding ceremony, Aurora was completely exhausted. She fell asleep almost instantly on the car ride back. When they arrived at the Sterling villa, Julian couldn't bear to wake her. He intended to carry her from the car to their bedroom, but the moment he lifted her, she startled awake. Put me down, Aurora said urgently. Your legs have just healed. You shouldn't be exerting yourself. Unable to argue with her, Julian reluctantly set her down. Then I'll help you walk. I'm not that delicate, Aurora said, giving him a gentle tap. They returned to their bedroom and shared a passionate kiss, spending a wonderful night together. A few months later, Aurora decided to delve deeper into the study of traditional medicine. She followed her father, learning from him day and night. A few years later, she took over his clinic and began practicing on her own. Julian, in turn, took over the Sterling group. One day, Julian and Aurora were out for a walk, hand in hand. The gentle spring breeze was incredibly pleasant. A vendor on the street was loudly hawking candied haws, and Aurora glanced over with interest. You want some? I'll get it for you. Julian noticed her gaze and, without waiting for a reply, went and bought a stick for her. A child on the sidewalk saw them and giggled. You're so old and you're still eating candied haws. Julian bent down and said to the child seriously, It's not just kids who like candied haws. This beautiful lady likes them too. Aurora smiled. All right, don't tease the children. Every week, Ethan would come to Aurora's clinic. He would hide in the crowd, never being noticed. After many years, one day when he came to the clinic, he encountered a little girl. Little Missy, can you sell the flower in your hand to this uncle? Ethan looked at the hawthorn blossom in the girl's hand and suddenly felt a strong desire to buy it. The girl held up the flower and turned around, her voice sweet and childish. "Why do you want to buy it?" When he saw her face, Ethan froze. She bore a 6/10 resemblance to Aurora. Even her eyes were identical to the woman he had longed for. Ethan crouched down, his voice choked with emotion. "Because I like it. Can you sell it to me?" "You like it?" The girl tilted her head, her expression serious. "But my mommy likes it too. I picked it for her." Ethan was stunned for a few seconds. He had guessed it. This girl was Aurora's child. "All right. Since it's for your mommy, I won't buy it." He reluctantly turned to leave, but the next moment the girl grabbed his hand. Her hand was soft and her eyes were as clear as a lake. "Uncle, here." The girl held the hawthorn blossom out to him. Ethan's heart trembled. He crouched down again to be at eye level with her. "But you said you were giving it to your mommy." The girl said, word by word, "My daddy planted a whole field of hawthorn blossoms for my mommy. Without this one, there are still many more. I can just go pick another one later." She gently smoothed the furrows on Ethan's brow. "The hawthorn blossom symbolizes good fortune, happiness, and contentment," the girl explained. "Uncle, you look very unhappy. I'll give you this flower," she held it out further. "I wish you happiness and contentment from now on." Ethan was touched by the girl's bright spirit. He reached out, took the flower, and said, "Thank you." "You're welcome," the girl skipped into the clinic. Watching her leave, Ethan felt that the obsession he had held onto for so many years should probably be laid to rest. He walked silently to the clinic entrance and watched the busy Aurora from a distance. A few minutes later, Ethan placed the hawthorn blossom by the door and walked away, looking back every few steps. From that day on, Ethan never spoke of finding Aurora again.